I'm with Jenna Oliver today, who's an account director from Dallas and also a strategy finishing school member. She is going to share with us her strategy portfolio. And the reason I love this is it shows that strategy is not just the role of a strategist, but account leaders are great at it too. So Jenna, I'll hand over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Julian. I am so excited. Strategy Finishing School has been unlocking for me, and so I'm excited to share my operating system and portfolio. So getting started, I like to start with a quote that for me really sort of summarizes what drives a strategist, and it's this innate sense of curiosity, of sort of looking up at the world around you and wondering at why and thinking about human behavior. And that's really what's brought me here to Strategy Finishing School. As Julian said, I'm actually an account director. I've been doing this for 10 years and sort of informally wearing a strategy hat, but wanted to up my skills in this area and bring back some learnings to the agency. So that's really what brought me here to Strategy Finishing School. Diving in, I'm going to go through a quick overview of what I think strategy means to me and the impact of it, talk about strategy in the workflow of creative and media projects, and then some examples of some outputs. Starting off with the impact of strategy, I like to think of a strategist as an astronomer. This is a person in a role who looks up when everyone else's head is sort of buried in the sand on the details of the business, of the brand. This is someone who looks around them at just human nature and what's going on in culture, studies the universe of relevant information, and then is able to sort of identify the gleaming bits of information in that, the stars, if you will, and, those pieces that are interesting and exciting, and then drawing sort of constellations or patterns between them to help craft the narrative that ultimately drives the strategy. And in that process, a strategist helps us sort of identify a brand's place in space. So the mindset of the consumer, where they are in their category. And then in the outputs that a strategist creates, she or he helps inspire ad teams to think galactically, to think bigger. So I'm really excited personally to be down this path. A strategist really turns business problems into resonant opportunities with the consumer, again, sort of creating those patterns. And in the process, the impact that's created is producing on-target, more imaginative work with less effort. So strategy is very important. In that, let's start to look at the workflow of strategy and how it fits into processes. So this is just a routine, you've seen something like this before, maybe different words, a sort of campaign workflow starting with discovery, briefing, creative, and then so on through launch and optimization. And a strategist really shines during the discovery and briefing stage, helping to kick off the work and drawing again from that research and then creating the direction for the team. But a strategist also helps with the creative process and sort of analyzing the work to make sure that it's on target by helping to contextualize those ideas within the consumer journey and make sure that the idea can get carried through across all channels. And so briefly looking at what the strategy workflow is, of course, with the help of Strategy Finishing School, I pulled this together on what are the outputs that make the most sense for me and my agency. Starting with the client brief, asking the questions, what do we know? What do we not know? Doing the research, and then distilling that down into the 4 C's of, the consumer, the category, culture, and the company. What are the key learnings that, again, have that most traction? And then the benefit letter I have found to be a super helpful tool and just getting my own brain thinking outside of the functional benefits of a product or a brand and thinking more about the emotional benefits. All of these help inform the strategy on the page, nestling the consumer problem and goal within the business problem and goal, which, transparently, I feel like sometimes we get stuck in that business problem and goal too much. And I love how it really helps us think about all of it together, that connective tissue. And then that informs the brief. And here at my agency, we actually collaborate on the brief together. So my job as the strategy lead would be to come to the room with our executive creative director, sometimes the president of our agency, the account lead, our lead creatives, all working together on sort of exploring different drafts of insights and brief structures, and then together deciding which is the most true and the most inspiring. And we take that brief and we actually sort of put ourselves in the shoes of the target and then flesh out a sort of consumer mindset and narrative in first person of, according to that storyline, what would I be thinking and feeling? And that really helps inspire our teams in their work. So then when we kick off, this is where the real fun and the play begins. And the strategist role is a supporting role in the beginning, really helping to make sure that the creative is on strategy, it's on target, and then creating the strategy upfronts for the client presentation or internal presentation. And then finally, we have that idea. Now is the time to make sure that it can get executed properly in an interesting way across all of our channels with a comms framework and tactical briefs. So that's the workflow that I'm working to adopt here in my agency. And then finally, okay, all of these outputs, what's an example of that? So what I've done is pull together a strategy upfront and then some documents for a campaign that I wish I had done, but I have not. And that's work that Airbnb has done. So Airbnb is a brand I personally love. I think they've always done a really, really good job of being different and breakthrough in their category and beyond. And so some work that launched recently this year personally resonated with me. So I'm going to show a couple of the 30-second spots because I love showing the different ways they took an overall strategy and applied it across different scenarios. And then I'll talk about what I think the strategy was.
If you're sharing a hotel room with friends, you're also sharing a bathroom and a mirror, a tiny hairdryer, and an outlet, and a tiny counter.
Let's go.
Get an Airbnb and get more space.
Is that my bestie in a taxi? Fresh blowout, skin on town, she red.
And my best friend, she a real bad got her own money. She don't need no on the dance floor.
The thing about traveling with your kids is that each year they get bigger, but the hotel stays the same size. Get an Airbnb and get room for everyone.
So what I love about both of these spots is that I am both a parent and someone who's been on a girls' trip, and I can definitely resonate with both of these situations. I think they did a really good job of making me think about hotels in a different way, which is really what led me to the strategy conclusion that I have. So from first starting from a business problem perspective, Airbnb has this surplus of rentals, both among themselves and in their direct competition, that exceed demand. And the long-term reason for that shorter demand is really that economic downturns and changes in travel behavior that have resulted from COVID. We're only just starting to get back to pre-COVID travel spending levels. And so behavior has changed, and Airbnb needs to fight harder to be the lodging choice for the post-COVID traveler, especially when you consider that hotel revenue far exceeds that of Airbnb or its direct competitor like Vrbo. So growth is not going to come for Airbnb from stealing share from its direct competitor, which, by the way, it's already, beating them in that category, but it's actually creating new customers and converting hotel customers. And so to convince people that normally choose hotels to choose an Airbnb instead, Airbnb really had to win over these customers by identifying the flaws in the hotel experience. Let's go on a quick journey on your last trip. Think about all that goes into planning a vacation. If you're like me, there's a lot of lead up to the vacation. I really needed it, so I wanted to make sure that it was perfect, planned every detail. First of all, researched where do I even want to go and spent a lot of time there. And then once I've narrowed it on that, what are we going to do? Where are we going to stay? What are we going to eat? All of that. A lot of time and effort making sure that, we're really maximizing that time. So imagine you get there to this ideal vacation and then you realize that you're disappointed by a hotel situation that is not ideal. So, for example, let's say you wanted to really live like a local and embrace the local culture, but your hotel is caught in a tourist trap and you're on the wrong side of town from where you actually wanted to be. Or think about that universal truth of sharing a bathroom in a tiny hotel room, and I'll let you connect the dots. It's not ideal either. Or maybe you dreamed of sleeping in and your travel buddy snores. I think we've all been there. Maybe you're the snorer, but maybe you're sleeping next to a snorer and you just don't get any rest. It's not fun. So essentially, where you stay during your vacation affects your satisfaction just as much as what you do. And for me, this really led into what I think was an insight for this campaign, which is that staying in a hotel seems like a convenient choice until you actually get there. Thinking about all the lead up to your trip, you're thinking hotels, it's sort of a mindless choice. It's reputable. There are plenty of options no matter where you want to stay. You get the turn down service. I don't have to make my bed. I'm living my best life. But then you actually get there and there's not enough space. It's not practical for your group. Maybe it's a little sterile, right? You wish it was cozier. And ultimately, it's not ideal. So how, for me, this translated into a creative brief. We want to get expectant vacationers planning a getaway who don't want to compromise on their ideal vacation to achieve the perfect trip to their standards by ditching the inconveniences of hotel rooms for Airbnb's stay Airbnb stays tailored to their unique needs. And so I think that this could have easily, translated into an integrated campaign across the consumer journey as follows. We've got here our main comms objective up front. We really are trying to convince travelers to choose Airbnb over hotels. We want them to experience this perfect getaway thanks to accommodations customized to their unique needs. And then thinking about the different phases. So, they're just living their life. They're going through the day-to-day grind of work, of family, of whatever it is that they're doing. And maybe we need to prompt them to think about their next vacation before they've even gotten there. And we want to start, as we're doing that, we want to start sort of deteriorating trust in hotels so that when they are ready to choose a vacation, they're automatically thinking, I'm going to choose an Airbnb. And so we're reaching them during their daily downtime in the middle of all that grind. So maybe it's post kids, bedtime, connected TV. Maybe it's during their commute, reaching them on Spotify or out of home. And then maybe when they're scrolling news or social, hitting them with digital. And they're learning. They're actually, deciding I need this trip. I'm starting to research. I'm starting to seek inspiration and plan. Airbnb can help provide inspiration during that planning process, whether it's, through paid search, giving them terms and giving them ideas on where to stay when they're searching online, serving up those beautiful aesthetic ideas of where to stay in a specific Airbnb on Pinterest, on Instagram, and then having partnerships with travel influencers. And then finally, when, I as someone who's planning a trip am ready to commit, hotels might feel like that mindless choice and sometimes that more cost-effective choice. Airbnb really needs to persuade them that you're getting more out of your trip when you choose an Airbnb. And again, reaching them at that point of sort of itinerary completion and booking with retargeting, maybe TripAdvisor, they're really down there. They're looking at reviews for restaurants and such, affiliate marketing, and then email retargeting as well. So this is how I imagine this campaign could have been set up. Before doing this, I had also done some work with the 4 C's, which, as I said in the beginning, was really, really helpful for me to distill this down into a singular idea. And then as well with a benefit ladder, helping me get out of the functional benefits of choosing an Airbnb. To summarize what I think strategy means to me, it's sort of discovering the star stuff in the everyday. It's looking at things that other people might gloss over or not think twice about and not inquire into, and finding meaning in them, and ultimately crafting a narrative and a big idea that shines. So thank you so much, Julian, for all of the support in this school. It's been such a treat, and I am so excited to apply the learnings here at my agency and for our clients.
Thank you so much for this, Jenna. It was awesome. Awesome to see this thought all the way through. I just want to kind of highlight a couple of pieces where I think you've really excelled as a strategist and a strategist/account director. The thing that I loved the most was you brought the idea through everything. This idea of stars, wonder, looking up, and strategy, and combining them together. It's actually the best example I've seen of that, of someone's strategy portfolio. So congrats on that. And even just the way I love that it all tied through to the ending as well. It was clearly, I know you've been working around big creative ideas for a long time, because it was just seamlessly put all the way through. And then I also love those quotes. Those quotes also help lend authority from other people and then just elevate the whole presentation. So I thought that was amazing to begin with. Other bits within that, the strategy workflow as a star constellation had just worked really well in my head as well, because the one thing that I loved in that, it was kind of like the astrology signs where you're going in this process. But the thing that I think the star constellation does so well is that it speaks about that kind of mucky bit at the end when we're in the creative development, and there's those kind of 4 steps that kind of are a little bit of a cycle that go through. And I think the constellation just played really well at that. Then getting into your strategy upfronts for Airbnb, love this. I think the slide of the business problem where you just show Vervo and hotels, it's just, that is we used to have this thing at BBDO, which was our money slides, where it was just you get it, it hits you, you're oh, wow, of course, this is what they have to do. And that just reminded me of that. And I think you really showed a great narrative here through taking whoever was from Airbnb or however you'd present this all the way through to execution. It just made so much logical sense. I also loved in the Get Who to Buy, the buy statement had Airbnb's role in it, and it was a solution to the problem set up. And I often see that's sometimes where people mess up. They don't know that that's where they put it. They think they've got to put it in the get to, they think they have to put in the consumer goal, but this was done really well. Another great little moment that I wanted to kind of highlight was in the comms framework. I love that you called them media moments. In there, you had daily downtime. I think that is just such a good visual to get creatives going. And so I really appreciated that addition onto the comms framework because I hadn't seen that before, but I just thought it was such a good touch and helps visualize it right away. So again, fantastic portfolio that just so happy we can share because this is great work.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot from your school, and that really helped. I said at the beginning, it's sort of been an unlocking move for me, honestly, in my career. And what I'm super excited about is to bring all of this into our agency. We've started doing that where it's had a ripple effect. So I've been able to sort of reinvigorate our briefing process, our kickoff process, and we're getting better and more inspiring work out of it. And everyone's really jacked up. So I'm super thankful for all the work that you put into the school and the thorough content. I've not experienced these types of learnings before. It's always put in a very, I think, rigid or sort of overly businessy way. I said earlier, it's stuck in the business problem and not enough in the consumer. And I think that's been the unlocking move. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for this. This is great.